Welcome! This video will provide an explanation and some fun examples of the 4 parenting styles that are attributed to a developmental psychologist named Diana Baumrind. Her research highlighted the impact of parenting styles on children's outcomes and really shaped our understanding about how parents raise children. It can be used in direct practice with children and families, and it's also really great to know for the social work licensing exams. I'm not here to judge your parenting style, but simply to educate you on a theory that you may find helpful in your academic and professional pursuits. So I'm starting with this grid that I made that really highlights the dimensions of parental responsiveness in a matrix, where on one side you have warmth, support, love, involvement, and then on the other side you have parental demandingness, so expectations, rules, discipline, and control. The 4 are authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and neglectful. These have also been applied as leadership styles, teaching styles, and so forth. So let's dive into each one a little bit more individually with some memory tricks. Authoritative is the very best because it is high in warmth and high in expectations. Authoritative parents enforce the rules, but in a loving and positive way. The expectations are clear and consistent. The consequences are fair, but it's done so with a reasonable, respectful, and loving attitude. So people often confuse authoritative and authoritarian, and I think of it as authoritative is the best, so it's very excellent. Now, little disclaimer, my next one, I'm kind of coloring outside the lines in terms of language, just to demonstrate a technique that I find memorable, but of course you can find something that works for you. Now, authoritarian parents are very strict. They're rigid and autocratic. They're very demanding and controlling and not very loving. They focus on the obedience. So people might colloquially say that someone like that might be maybe a bit uptight, a bit anal, authoritarian. And who else was rigid, controlling, and not very warm? Nazis. So think authoritarian ends in AN, like a Nazi. Importantly, you're never going to tell a parent that you think they're anal or that they're operating like a Nazi. I have ancestors who passed away in the Holocaust, so please know that my heart is not to be flippant or insensitive here, but rather to just illustrate a concept that I think will help make this more memorable for your learning. Next, we have permissive parents, and permissive parents might be pushovers because there's not really any clear rules or disciplines, kind of loosey-goosey. They're really lenient and indulgent. Very loving, very warm and supportive. So lots of love to give, but not so much structure. That would be permissive. And then finally, neglectful parenting is the worst because you're low on both sides. And it's something that you would never want to see. So you do not want to see neglectful parenting. Womp womp, this is the worst of both worlds. Now, depending on where you read about these, you may see some aliases for neglectful. You may also see it as dismissive or uninvolved. And I encourage you to make up your own memory devices, like dismissive is a disaster, and so forth, to be able to remember these concepts. Now, let's take a look at some examples, and I'm going to describe a scenario or situation and see if you can identify which of these 4 parenting styles is being talked about. So here's Mama Fox, and she caught Junior with his hand in the cookie jar, and she decided to crush his skull with her jaw. Mama Fox doesn't really take any BS, and she rules with an iron fist, and her philosophy is my way or the highway. These are the rules because I said so, and she doesn't, negotiate or really care about how Junior feels about anything. That would be an authoritarian parenting style, most likely. Whereas on the other side of town, Grandpa Rhino lets his baby do whatever the heck he wants, including sitting on his face while he's trying to nap. He doesn't give out consequences very often, and he thinks baby Rhino would learn the best with little interference from him. Baby Rhino ended up being kind of impulsive, maybe a bit aimless, potentially lower in self-control and achievement, because this parenting style is permissive. Now, oh dear, we've got baby Seal, who's so sad and lonely. No caregivers to be found anywhere. Look at that face. Mama Seal isn't asking how his day went or giving him licks or seeing how many fish he caught today. It's almost like his caregivers are neglectful. That's the worst. So I guess Sally Seal over here is really going to need a social worker when she grows up. And finally, Daddy Elephant here is making sure that baby gets a move on and gets in line for his own protection, but is doing so in a very loving and hands-on way. There's high expectations and high warmth. Daddy Elephant explains the reason for the rules. You gotta keep up because we don't want a lion to eat you. And he sets limits and enforces those and gives consequences, but he also is sensitive to how the child is feeling and what they're capable of. Little baby elephant here is going to grow up to be friendly and self-reliant and curious, cooperative, and achievement-oriented with probably a secure attachment because good old Daddy Elephant had a very excellent parenting style of authoritative. Hopefully that's helpful for you and happy studying.